Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een. Brothers and sisters, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Once again, thank you very much for joining us for this fifth episode of Ramadan Unlocked. In fact, the final show of Ramadan and the final Saturday and the last day of Ramadan. So, alhamdulillah, thank you very much for joining us. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, Ramadan Unlocked has been brought to you by Faith Inspire. It is a show that we had put together for the month of Ramadan. And this is the fifth show because this month of Ramadan had 5 Saturdays. So this show has been running every Saturday at 6 p.m. And alhamdulillah, over the last several weeks, we've had a number of guests, which is one of the unique features of this show. This is a show where we discuss Ramadan life, spirituality, and community affairs. But one of the unique features of this show is that alongside our resident Shaykh Shafiur Rahman, we have a guest that joins us every week. So we've had Shaykh Mustafa Umar from California joining us the first week. And then we had Imam Suhaib Webb. We had Dr. Waleed Abdul Hakim, the traveling Imam. We had last week Shaykha Maryam joining us. And today, alhamdulillah, we also have a very special guest, Shaykh Fadel Soliman, who I'll be introducing in just a moment. But first of all, let me kind of bring in Shaykh Shafiur Rahman. Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. How are you doing?
Yeah, alhamdulillah. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Good, good.
Alhamdulillah. Shaykh Shafi has been with us as a resident Shaykh and co-host for the full duration. So we're very grateful to him for being with us and giving his time this month of Ramadan. Brothers and sisters, today, alhamdulillah, we have with us our special guest, and that is Shaykh Fadel Soliman. Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh Fadel.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Ramadan Kareem.
Barakallahu feekum.
I should be saying almost Eid Mubarak because we're so close. Yes. So
in Egypt, we say Eid Kareem. We avoid saying Mubarak, but anyway.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But nowadays you can say it. Nowadays you can say it.
Now it's good.
Now it's good.
Now we can say Mubarak as well. Alhamdulillah, for some of our viewers who may not be familiar with Shaykh Fadel, a very brief introduction to our guest before we start the discussion. Shaykh Fadel Soliman is the director of Bridges Foundation, which is an international organization specialized in presenting Islam through cultural presentations and really dealing with misconceptions around Islam, and we'll be looking at some of that in today's show. He's also a member of the International Union of Muslim Scholars. He's a consultant of the International Union of Al-Azhar Scholars. Shaykh Fadel has a master's degree in Islamic Sharia from the American Open University in Washington and a diploma in Islamic Studies from the Higher Institute of Islamic Studies in Cairo. And alhamdulillah, he has studied various Islamic sciences, usul al-fiqh, tafsir, ulum al-hadith, under great scholars from Al-Azhar, where he's originally from. Shaykh Fadel has also a degree in electronics and communication from the Faculty of Engineering at Ain Shams University in Cairo. But Shaykh Fadel is very much involved in public speaking. He's also an author and a producer of various documentaries on Islam. Most recently, he has translated the Quran as well into English, and we will explore that as part of today's show. So the main focus, alhamdulillah, in today's show will be around some of the areas that Shaykh Fadel has really been focusing on over the last several years. One is around Tadabbur al-Quran. As mentioned in our previous shows, there was reference to Shaykh Fadel's Tadabbur course, which is delivered in Arabic, but this is an area that he's been exploring for many years. So contemplating and reflecting and exploring the meanings and reflecting on the meanings of the Quran, the approach that he takes, and how can we all explore the Quran and build a deeper relationship with the Quran, which we have been discussing throughout the course of this month, because this is the month of Quran. So again, we'll be exploring that from the angle that Shaykh Fadel comes from, and also the translation that he has worked on. Also, we'll be kind of exploring some of the misconceptions around Islam, which Shaykh Fadel has been working on through his Bridges Foundation, and we'll be looking at some of that as well. And hopefully we'll kind of towards the latter part also explore post-Ramadan, because today is of course still unfortunately, sadly, the last day of Ramadan for this year, and tomorrow, inshallah, we'll be celebrating Eid. Although I know some people may be celebrating Eid on different days, which is of course always the case, and maybe we can have a little discussion about that towards the end as well. Always very interesting, and all the WhatsApp groups and discussion forums gets really busy with the same old discussion every year. It's nothing.
If you just remind people about questions, yeah?
Absolutely, go ahead, Sheikh.
So feel free, as every week, we take questions live from the audience from Facebook. Type your comments in there, inshallah, and those questions will be forwarded to us. We do try and answer as many as we can. So feel free, start typing away, don't wait till the end. We usually run out of time at the end, but do type in and we'll take questions throughout the program, inshallah.
Absolutely. One of the things that we would also like to hear from you is what's been the most memorable thing for you this Ramadan? Today is the last day of Ramadan. It's been a Ramadan under lockdown. It's been a different and unique Ramadan. Coming into this month of Ramadan, we've had lots of anticipation in terms of how it's going to be, the challenges of mosques being closed. But now we've kind of lived through it, alhamdulillah. So just looking back, what would you say were the best moments, the positives? Because we always like to be optimistic and look at the positives. What's been the unique and most positive thing for you this Ramadan? If you share your comments, that will be interesting for our participants, and we'll try and read as many of those as possible. But let me start off with asking Shaykh Fadel, Jazakallah khairan once again for giving up your time this evening. How has Ramadan been for you under lockdown? This is quite a different Ramadan.
Alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulullah. All praise are due to Allah, the creator, the cherisher, and the sustainer of this universe. And may his peace and blessings be upon his noble prophet Muhammad and his descendants and his companions and his followers. This Ramadan is maybe a unique one, a very peculiar one. In it, the mosques all over the world were closed. There was no i'tikaf in any mosque, and people did not pray the obligatory prayers in the mosques, and people did not pray Taraweeh in the mosques, and even the Umrah. We were not able to do Umrah, though we know that the Umrah in Ramadan equals a Hajj. And in another narration, equals a Hajj with Prophet Muhammad himself. And despite all that, Muslims all over the world prayed at home and pondered the Quran and read the Quran and attended substitute khutbahs through live broadcasting on the internet. So we need to be not proud of ourselves, but to be optimistic that if this was a test for the Ummah, then inshallah the Ummah have passed the test. And for those who worshipped Allah and held tight to the religion despite all of these difficulties, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, has a bushra for them, has a good news for them. And that's in a hadith narrated in Musnad al-Imam Ahmed, that my ummah is given 5 things in Ramadan that not any other nation was given. The last one of it is, and at the last night of Ramadan, they are all forgiven. So the Sahaba interrupted the Prophet ﷺ and said, is this the night of Qadr? Is this Laylatul Qadr? He said, no. You know, when a worker finishes his work, he gets paid. So when you finished your work last night, you got paid. Today is the last day in Ramadan. And actually, let me comment on a word you said, Brother Junaid. You said, sadly, it is the end of Ramadan. The sunnah is to be happy at the end of Ramadan, by the way, because the Prophet ﷺ said, لِلصَّائِمِ فَرْحَتَانِ, for a fasting person, there are 2 occasions of when he should be happy. One of them is when he ends his fast, which means at the end of Ramadan, and the other one is when he meets his Lord, when he dies. He should be happy with his Sawm, because Sawm will be benefiting him, inshallah. Yeah, but the issue is, what was happening in Ramadan? We were fasting, we can continue fasting. But the Lord of Shawwal is the same Lord of Ramadan. We used to read Quran, let's continue reading Quran. We used to give charity, let's continue giving charity. So Ramadan was a workshop that trains people on how to be muttaqeen. يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. O you who have attained faith, fasting has been prescribed upon you like it was prescribed upon those before you, that you may be mindful of Allah. So all what you need is to benefit from Ramadan and to continue with this momentum until the next Ramadan.
Jazakallah khairan. Shaykh Fadel, for that introductory remarks. Shaykh Shafi, your reflections on this final day of Ramadan, looking back, how has it been?
It's been obviously very different, very different. If I can pick out one thing that stood out for myself, I would say the greatest thing is that in the past, because we had the options of going to the masjid every night, I would never ever have thought that I could really pray Taraweeh at home with any proper kind of feeling and quality and connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is, this has been a revelation for me. Not that I've achieved anything, but I'm saying in terms of 30 days or 30 nights, just being able to do that, and the fact that you don't have to be at the masjid to really, really benefit from night prayers, especially Taraweeh, because often, if for some reason you couldn't go to the masjid, you're kind of upset, or you're kind of, if you're ill or something, you're missing the masjid. But actually that night prayer is really about you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the greatest lesson. So I think that's one thing that's really stood out. And I'm thinking maybe next year, even if the masjids are open, I'm going to do some at home.
That's exactly what I was thinking as well, actually. If I was to reflect on mine, one of my highlights was that being able to do Taraweeh with my family. With my kids, and my son is 7, my daughter is young as well, but I was able to give my son a couple of rak'at to lead as well every day. So he was leading the family, and he would normally not be doing that, so he's encouraging him as well, and I think we'll definitely miss that. That was really, really unique and very powerful aspect of this Ramadan, which we've never experienced before. Jazakallah khairan. Shaykh Fadel, so if we were to kind of delve into the first area of our discussion, which is around the Quran and Tadabbur al-Quran.
Yeah.
Let's start off by asking you about this new translation that you've done. I understand you've worked on it for over 4 years. Here it is, mashallah. It's a full translation of the whole Quran, not any kind of chapters. From Arabic to English.
I'll tell you
with so many translations out there already, why did you feel the need to do another translation? What's unique about it? And how's your journey been in authoring this translation?
Okay, well, when I came to this country, to the UK 7 years ago, okay, I'm going to tell you something that maybe it's the first time I say publicly in English. I said it in some of my lessons.
Privilege for our audience, may inspire something.
Yes, exclusively
from the first time.
Exclusively, yeah. Well, about 12 years ago, I started giving a workshop called At-Tarbiyah Al-Imaniyya in Egypt. And before I start my first workshop, I saw Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in a vision, in my sleep. And that's the only time I've seen him.
Subhanallah.
And it was an amazing dream. I saw the big sports halls that sometimes Muslims in Europe rent in Eid, where many mosques gather in that sports hall. I've seen a sports hall like that, and a very long line of prayer rugs put next to each other, and on them there are people waiting for the Imam, and the rug of the Imam is empty. And then I saw Prophet Muhammad ﷺ taking me from my hand and walking me to the rug of the Imam, and he is making me stand on it to lead the prayer. Wow. And I woke up and I went to my Shaykh and I told him, I think this is a confirmation that the Prophet is happy with me giving the Tarbiyah Imaniyya, which I am about to start in Egypt. He said, probably yes. I said, but there is something weird about the dream. He said, what? I said, the kind of people who were sitting on the rugs are not Egyptians. Many of them are Somalis and the rest are Asians. And they looked for me like European Muslims. I don't think I will ever give a Tarbiyah al-Imaniyya in Europe. At that time, I used to live in Egypt. So how, because it's an 8-week program. How am I going to stay for 8 weeks somewhere and I have my business in Egypt and I have my work in Egypt, my family in Egypt? And how come I'm gonna go 8 times to Europe? I don't think this will ever happen. And then maybe within a year or something, I came here and I was told in East London Mosque to give the Tarbiyah Imaniyah, and I started to give it in English. And since then, I gave it in many mosques in English all over the UK. The issue is the Tarbiyah Imaniyah depends on Tadabbur al-Quran. There is a daily homework that every trainee makes, and he has to send an email telling me that he did 55 minutes of Tadabbur or 1 hour, 5 minutes or 1 hour exactly. He has to report every day that he did the homework. So can we do Tadabbur from English language, from English translations? It's not the Quran actually. The Quran is the Arabic text only. And this made me really think about that, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, كِتَابٌ أَنزَلْنَاهُ إِلَيْكَ مُبَارَكٌ لِيَدَّبَّرُوا آيَاتِهِ. A blessed book that I have sent down to you, singular you, to Prophet Muhammad, so that they may ponder its ayat, its signs. So for me, this meant that the Quran is to be pondered. Yeah, we are using it in different ways, but it's mainly to be pondered upon. But how can people do that if they don't know Arabic? Can people ponder from English language? Well, and then I started to think about that. Well, we know some cases of people. Well, you had a guest 2 weeks ago who was a DJ. And then he read the Quran and became Muslim. Sarah Joseph in London here, Sister Sarah Joseph, she read the Quran and she became Muslim. Yusuf Islam, who was Cat Stevens, and then he read the Quran and he became Muslim. Actually, they did not read the Quran. They read the translation.
Last week we had Sheikh Maryam, who said that he read the translation of the Quran, which really inspired her to pursue Islamic sciences, and now she's, mashallah, an alima.
So, though the translation is not the Quran, though the translation can be 60 or 70 or 80% accurate only, still the element of guidance is in it. And this means that we can still ponder from the translation. After that, I tried to ponder, to apply the tadabbur, the keys of tadabbur, the keys of pondering the Quran on the English translation. And I took, at that time, I was using Dr. Muhammad Abdul Halim's translation. And I gave through Faith Inspire. I'm sorry. No. It's not the workshop. I pondered Surah An-Nur in East London Mosque. And by pondering it, it was the first time I pondered from an English translation. I started to find several things. Number one, pondering is very possible from translations. 2, there are things that are in the translations that should be changed. And if they can be avoided, it will allow a better level of pondering in English. And I started to put my hand on these things that should be changed. And the dream came true. I had a committee of linguists and translators with me, and we started translating as a part of a bigger project called Tadabbur Beyond Arabic, which means that even in English, you can do Tadabbur. And I'll give you now several things. First of all, of course, this was out about 2 months ago or 3 months ago now. And it is the first translation for the 10 modes of recitation of the Quran, the 10 qira'at of the Quran. And many people don't know that there are modes of recitation, but they are aware that Moroccans read differently from the rest. Yeah, Moroccans and Algerians and Tunisians read what we call Warsha and Nafi'. Most of the Muslims read Hafsa and Asim, but there are like these 20 different narrations, by the way. 10 qira'at, every qari' has 2 narrators. 30 to 40% of the variations between the qira'at can affect the meaning in a very beautiful way. They do not, meanings are enriched, but they do not contradict. So the ayah becomes vivid and it becomes like high definition or 3-dimension. It starts moving if you read its meanings from the qira'at. And I can give you examples if you want, but it will take time. So that's the first thing. This is the first translation, alhamdulillah, of the 10 qira'at of the Quran. Though I studied the 10 qira'at, but I have ijazah only in one of them, which is Warsh and Nafi'. But alhamdulillah, I had in the committee 3 people who have ijazah in the 10 qira'at, and they mastered the English language as well. And they reviewed my translation for the qira'at, and I benefited from them.
So are you suggesting in this translation you have captured the meanings, the variations in meaning that are given by all the 10 qira'at?
Exactly, exactly. You will see in the footnotes that, for example, it says Warsh and Ibn Amir and Ibn Kathir read it as, and you see how they read it. So in the main text, you are reading the translation of Hafs, and in the footnotes, it gives you the rest of the Quran. That's the first thing. Second, the other things are things that are into pondering. Every translation, we have 165 English translations. Some of them are amazing translations, very good translations. Mine is not better. Mine is different. Every translation focused on translating the meanings of the word of God. Bridges translation focused on translating the meanings of the word of God and the style of God in speech, not just the meanings. And I'll give you an example.
Yeah, an example might make it very
I will give you actually a very, very strong example that may, brace yourselves. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke about the hereafter about 500 times in the Quran. Maybe 499 of them are in past tense, not in future tense like you read in English. When Allah says in Surah Al-Zumar, وَسِيقَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا إِلَى جَهَنَّمَ زُمَرًا, it means, and the disbelievers were driven to hellfire, not shall be driven like every translation says. When he said, وَسِيقَ الَّذِينَ اتَّقَوْا رَبَّهُمْ إِلَى الْجَنَّةِ زُمَرًا, and those who are mindful of God were admitted to paradise, it doesn't say shall be admitted like in every translation. When Allah says, وَنَادَوْا يَا مَالِكُ لِيَقْضِ عَلَيْنَا رَبُّكَ, that when the evildoers are being tortured in hellfire, they called out to Malik, the warden of hellfire, they called out in past tense, let your Lord finish us off. He said, not he will say, you are staying. قَالَ. Why translators did that? Actually, I met 4 or 5 great translators. One of them is Dr. Ahmed Zaki Hamad. Maybe I consider his translation one of the best. And of course, Brother Mustafa Khattab, who's a dear friend, and Dr. Muhammad Abdul Halim, many of them. And all of them, I asked them this question. And I meant to be bold like that when I asked, who gave you the right to change the tenses of the verbs? And all of them said, what do you mean? I said, when God spoke about the hereafter, he always spoke in past tense. And all of them gave me the same answer. What do you want us to do? The English reader will find it awkward. It's a future event. I said, why didn't Arabic readers find it awkward? Arabic is like English in this. Past tense does not denote future in Arabic. Present does, like in English. So it was my dream to let the Quran be available in the style it was, or actually as close as possible to the Arabic text in English. So in this translation, you will find a lot of cases where Allah speaks about the hereafter in past tense and a footnote. In the footnote it says, frequently the Quran addresses the events of the hereafter in past tense, and this should be pondered by the reader. I do not push my pondering upon you. It shocked many Arab-speaking people, so we went and we started pondering, and we went to the tafsir and we found tafsirs for that. Some tafsir is that Allah is emphasizing that it will definitely happen as if it happened already. Another tafsir is that it already happened in the knowledge of Allah, because Allah is the first and the last, the first without a beginning and the last without an end. So for Allah, there's no future, but for us, it's a future. And there is other pondering also, by the way, that I don't want to get into it now because it can take forever. But the issue here is we as Arab-speaking people should not treat non-Arab-speaking people as, we are not guardians. We are not guardians. You guys must know, you have the right to know how your Lord spoke. So we brought it as it is, like that. One more thing. Anta means you in English. Antum is also you. Antum is you, but in a plural tense when you are addressing a group of people. Antuma means you, but when you're speaking to two people. So we're speaking about two completely different languages and structure. Because the pronoun is you in English, so whenever someone writes a text in English, he writes it in a way that makes the reader understand if he's addressing one or two or more, or a group. But in Arabic, no one needs to do that because we have plenty of pronouns that are self-explanatory. They tell you how many, they tell you even masculine or feminine. This is different. So how did translators deal with that? They used, in order to explain to the reader that this you, or this imperative tense, say, is qul, not qulu, that it is singular, they add a between brackets, O Muhammad. Say, O Muhammad, between brackets. Or you, between brackets, O Muhammad. It means singular. Yeah, but Allah said Muhammad 4 times in the Quran only. Why are you adding 1005 or 1004? Allah said it only 4 times. It's true that you're adding it between brackets, and every reader should understand that whatever is between brackets is not from the text, is explanation. But still, it will make an effect. When there is an ayah that says, Jews and Christians will never be pleased with you, O Muhammad, until you follow their religion, it will affect you differently from Jews and Christians will not be pleased with you until you follow their religion. It's a different effect. So here the issue is.
Shall we come back? Shall we come back for some elaboration on the point that you were raising in terms of key components of tadabbur? Because I think that would be really useful. I think.
But I would love, if it's possible, that I can share screen here and show people what we did only in this issue, because I'm about to finish it. What did we do to tell the reader without adding brackets, O believers, to tell you that this is plural? When Allah wanted to say, O mankind, we don't know what Allah wanted to say. So can I show you quickly this, and then we can come back to the tadabbur?
I'm not sure. I'm not. I think. Are you able to just verbally explain it?
I can share screen. Okay, fine.
You can.
I can. Okay, good.
So go.
I will explain it verbally first, and then show it to you.
Okay.
In order to limit the time of sharing the screen.
Yeah.
We added a suffix.
Shaykh Fadel, while you're talking, just share the screen.
Yeah.
While you're talking.
Okay, good. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Host disabled attendee screen sharing. Can you give some democracy? I need some democracy.
I think you would have been given the option.
Okay, now given. Now. Alhamdulillah. Thank you very much for your democracy. No. One moment. Okay, here.
It's coming up. It's not up yet.
It's this one. This one. Good. Okay. So here, you see, for example, okay, and they swore by Allah their most solemn oath that if you, and there's a small SG, this means you singular. Instead of if you, O Muhammad, we just tell you that this is singular. If you commanded them, they would set out say, SG, which means singular say. This means qala or qul, not qulu. Qulu would be PL. Say, do not swear, your obedience is well known. Do has a PL, plural, to tell you that this is addressing a group of people, okay? And so here, for example, in 54, say SG suffix, which means qul. Obey PL suffix, which means plural. Obey Allah, ati'u Allah, not ati'illah. This means ati'u. It means that the Prophet is given the command to say to a group of people, obey Allah, and so on. So this is what we did, actually, as simple as that. So we added this suffix, plural, PL, dual, DL. When Allah spoke to Musa and Harun, he spoke in a dual tense. He said, idhaba faqula, okay? And also, and we added SG for singular. This is with the imperative tenses and with the pronouns. I want to tell you that a convert who converted about 25 years ago read that and she broke down and cried. And I said, why are you crying? She said, I'm reading the most beloved ayah to my heart. And now I found that it's the first time to understand it. I didn't know that. I thought that Allah is speaking to all of us. Now he's speaking to Prophet Muhammad only. So the issue is, this can be a bit addictive. If you get used to reading this translation with the PL and SG like that, you may not be able to read the old one again. It may take you time to get used to this. So this is mainly, so the issue here is, the good thing about that is that I'm not pushing my understanding on you. Because if I tell you that this pronoun is plural by putting "O mankind," when Allah wanted to say "O believers," so why am I pushing my understanding on you? Tadabbur is a personal experience between the human being and the Quran. I should not interfere. I should get you a text in English that is as close as possible to the text in Arabic. I can't make it equal to it. It will never be equal to it, but as close as possible. That's what we try to do.
Fascinating, and may Allah bless you in your efforts. It's with all the translations available, you can see that each translator takes a different approach, and you've clearly taken a very powerful approach from your perspective, from the approach of facilitating tadabbur for the audience, and we want to come back to that in just a moment, inshallah. I had goosebumps when you were sharing your dream at the beginning, which seems
amazing dream, subhanallah.
Yeah, it's an amazing, beautiful dream, mashallah. Shaykh Shafi, well, we're touching on translations, and I think many of our viewers would be accessing the Quran through translations. What would be your kind of experience with reading translations? Are there any that, on top of the one that Shaykh Fadel is doing, any others that you've come across that you would recommend, and what should be the approach when someone is reading the translation of the Quran? Because the point Shaykh Fadel was making is that actually someone could be reading a translation and thinking that's exactly what the Quran is saying, but there is so many nuances that are actually missing. So what would be your advice for people who are reading translations?
Yeah, very quickly, I think the first thing to understand also, in addition to what Shaykh Fadel has been saying, is even if you read the Quran in Arabic and say you're an Arab, and you read the Quran in Arabic, even there you will be thinking the Quran is saying something, but you haven't got it right. When you go and check the tafsir, actually the Quran is saying something else. So the Quran is a complex text. It's of the highest rhetorical kind of standard. And as they say, the best speech is the one that the general public understand its meaning, and also the specialists, they can know its kind of quality as well in terms of its content. So there's always two levels. So that's all, even in Arabic. When you come to English, then obviously what Shaykh Fadel mentioned, all the problems of translation, etc., is going to be there. I think the couple of translations that I'm aware of, I haven't studied translations in that sense, but the clear Quran, as Imam Fadel mentioned, Khattab, I think his name is Mustafa Khattab. The clear Quran is a really good translation. Professor Abdul Halim's one is a really good translation. The study Quran is not a bad translation as well. because it has also some brief notes, explanation notes on the side to kind of give you what the meaning is or the context, etc. So I think those three are fairly good for English language compared to the old translations we used to have. And like Imam Fadel said, there's so many variances in terms of accuracy. That's one of the problems. You're always going to get 70% accuracy, 65%. But even then, I would add one last thing on this is, in addition to what Imam Fadel was saying, tadabbur is about spending time with the Quran, even if it's in English, reflecting how does it relate to you. End of the day, it's guidance for everybody. And the most important parts of the Quran, every person can understand at a basic level, at a level where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala intended for you to understand and be reminded and be guided. So at that level, it's for everyone. Spend time, reflect, see how much you're following, etc. Reflect on your life. What's your purpose? One of the good things about the Quran is, or an exercise to do, is compare your priorities with this. One of my teachers said, you will always find our priorities are different from the priorities in the Quran. Look at when you read the Quran, each juz, what is the priority that Allah is putting in the Quran? What's important? What's mentioned again and again? What is mentioned in very high praise? What is really criticized or blamed? Look at the priorities and then compare, I should compare my priorities in my life and see how far off they are, or do they match? So that's one good tool of tadabbur, because the Quran really brings us back to a kind of the right direction, if you like, the Siratul Mustaqim. It gives us the ability to prioritize according to the Quran. The other thing is regularity. We don't do it often enough, and that's the problem. The Quran was meant to be finished, the reason why they divided it into ajza, so you can finish in 30 days. You can have a good relationship with the Quran. Each day you finish one juz, or even half, finish it in 60 days. But unfortunately, we're busy, we're lazy, we don't read the entire Quran enough times as well. But apart from all that, I would still say, even though this whole thing is about tadabbur in English, that's all good. But I would still say in the West, everyone has an opportunity, especially these days, and especially now, everyone has an opportunity to learn the Arabic. And we must, whoever has the opportunity, whoever has the means, and we all do, come on, we pay £30,000 to achieve a degree, right? We pay almost a mortgage to achieve a degree in physics or biology, on business, whatever it is. Arabic will take you, if you do it intensely, 2 to 3 years, maybe even less, to get you to a very basic level where you can start feeling the meanings of the Quran, start feeling the meanings and understanding the power and the kind of language of the Quran. We're not saying you're going to become mufassir and you're going to understand everything directly, no. But I think although there is this big movement to make things easy to people, and that's well and truly deserved and is needed, and Jazakallah khairan to Shaykh Fadel for this great service. But we must at the same time, because too often people make excuses, I don't have the time, I don't have the ability. No, you have the time, you have the ability. It's about your commitment and the will and the decision. And it's so open. 20 years ago, there were no institutes teaching Arabic in East London. 25 years ago, no, zero. You had to go to some other foreign place to learn Arabic. But now it's available everywhere. And now under lockdown, it's available almost, online to everybody. Mm-hmm. So I would really, on top of that, add, do the parallel journey, do the tadabbur, at the same time, make an intention, begin the journey for Arabic.
Yeah. Shaykh Fadel, someone, May Hamwe, is asking, what is the name of the translated Quran, your copy, and where can someone get a copy of that?
Okay, it is called Bridges Translation of the 10 Qira'at of the Noble Quran. I suggest either they go for the PDF, because I think the paperback is a bit overpriced, because I signed with an American publisher, and it's a bit overpriced. And if you still want the paperback copy, wait for a couple of weeks because there are some typos that we are correcting now. But in the PDF is good, and you can buy it from Bridges Foundation website. Go to bridges-foundation.org and go to books. And in the books, you will find the translation is only for less than £3. So it's better maybe than the paperback right now. Also, we have an Android app that we just launched last week. It's not finished yet because the English narration is coming, inshallah. Right now, you can find in it English narration, but not for all surahs. We have, of course, it is our translation, Bridges translation, and a secondary translation, which is Mustafa Khattab's Clear Quran translation. So I believe that Mustafa Khattab's the Clear Quran translation is the best translation after Bridges translation. But actually, it is one of the best. And one of the elements here is that Mustafa is a young man. So even when someone gives him an advice, he's flexible and he takes the decision and he changes whatever he thinks is wrong or so on. Not maybe others were not that flexible.
But I would add, Imam Fadel, there's still room for improvement in the translations, because when I'm preparing for tafsir, and then I look at translations and I look at the meaning and the tafsir, still sometimes even the very best translations,
definitely
they don't get the right kind of focus or meaning on certain words. So that's really important.
One of the things that is also in Bridges translation is that we focused on standardization. So, for example, Allah says anzala and nazzala. أنزل القرآن and نزل القرآن also. أنزل الماء من السماء. أنزل is different in Arabic from نزل. This one is a different verb that has a زاي مشددة. Even this is taken care of in our translation. One of them is send down and the other one is bestow from on high. We went and we studied both, and we found that all of those that has زاي مشددة, they came in the context of wahi. So we differentiated between it. One of the things also, for example, the word ayah, we do not translate it as verse. It's translated as sign.
Because Fadel, isn't anzala also send down part by part?
No, nazzala, they say nazzala is sent down part by part. This is in the tafsir, but I believe it is a wrong tafsir because it was mentioned with the Torah. من بعد ما نزل التوراة. So the Torah was not sent part by part. So that's why it has nothing to do with this. We found that نزل with a zain mushaddada has to do always with the wahi, that it is from Allah. It is focusing on the source, that it came from Allah. So we chose bestow from on high for this. But anzala came with water and came with the Quran also, but not focusing on the source. Okay.
I think the key point is very clear in terms of when approaching translations, to approach with caution, that it's not going to give you the full taste, full meaning of the Quran, and each translation has its different approach. And I think also for the reader, it's also important when they are picking a translation, they are comfortable with the flow of writing within that translation. And one of the things I found very interesting with Professor Abdul Halim's translation is the way he writes in paragraph forms, makes the reading of it very smooth, and allows you to kind of take a very comprehensive meaning where it's all connected together, rather than one kind of verse by verse, which is completely disconnected. So I think there is lots of different factors when choosing those translations. And I think just sticking to one translation is not going to be enough. And I think the point about accessing the Quran in Arabic as much as possible, pursuing that journey whilst trying to read the translations is the balance really to take, and be aware of the gaps that there will be definitely between the Arabic and the translation. Shaykh Fadel, someone is asking, you mentioned just for yourselves side of things, or the mobile app, what's that called if someone wants to download it?
I will put for you the link. Actually, I think if they look for Bridges translation of the Qira'at, maybe I'm not an Android user yet, so I'm gonna put the link for you, and you're gonna
try and get a link and post
but
it.
It's not complete yet.
Okay.
But I started a point and I didn't finish it.
Sure. Apologies. Yeah.
One of the problems also with the translations is that the very first translators followed the footsteps of the Bible translators. So one of the things is that they called every unit of text verse. And verse is the unit of text in poetry.
Imam Fadel.
Nah.
Imam Fadel, is it true Yusuf Ali didn't know Arabic?
I don't know that.
No?
I don't know. I'm not sure. How did he translate then?
That's what I'm thinking. But anyway, carry on. I thought maybe you knew.
I don't know. No, I didn't know that. And verse is the unit of text in poetry. Sentence is the unit of text in prose. The Quran is neither poetry nor prose. The Quran is a different type of text, and every unit of text in the Quran is called ayah, which means sign. This means that every unit of text of the Quran is a sign of God. They should not have followed the footsteps of the Bible translators and made every unit of text verse. It's not a verse, it's a sign from God. So that's one of the things also that we changed here, beside the standardization. For example, the word al-muttaqin, it can be the righteous, it can be the pious, it can be the fearful of God, it can be the conscious of God. Many translations, all of them are right. But what's wrong is to use several ones in the same book, because like that you deprived the reader from realizing the repetition. If I want to get a Quranic picture about al-muttaqin, I will search for the word in all over the Quran and read the contexts that it came in to have a picture how the Quran sees al-muttaqin. But in English, if al-muttaqin is once the pious and once the righteous and once the conscious of God, I will not realize the repetition. So we standardized things like that, that for us, for example, al-muttaqin is the mindful of God. From al-Fatiha all the way to an-Nas, we don't change it.
What about a word like salah? For sending salah on the Prophet ﷺ, the angel, you know, in the tafsir, they say each salah means different here. And when Allah sends salah on the...
Of course, when I mean, of course, when I say we standardize, I won't say we standardize as much as possible. Because sometimes the word khair comes in terms of that it means money, for example. But I have to standardize as much as possible, and still I will give a footnote and say in the footnote, this word came also in that meaning or that meaning. Because the main thing is that this is a part of a bigger project, which is tadabbur beyond Arabic. We want people, I know that, first of all, I agree with Shaykh Shafiur Rahman that mastering the Arabic language is not impossible. Look at Suhaib Webb. He mastered it maybe in 9 months, by the way. So the issue is you can do that if you give time. Maybe Suhaib Webb was giving 6 hours a day to master it in 9 months. If you don't have 6 hours every day and you have 3 hours, you will master it in 1.5 years. If you don't have 3 hours and you have only 1.5 hours, you will master it in 4 years or 6 years. Still just start. So, but until we learn Arabic and we master Arabic, because some people learn how to put letters next to each other and they think that they can know Arabic like that because they can read it in Arabic, but without any understanding. That's not reading Arabic. That's not right. We have to go and learn Arabic to the extent that you can read and understand. And don't be bothered when you don't find yourself understanding the Quranic text fully, because even Arabs do not understand it fully, like Shaykh Shafiur said. So don't be bothered with that, but go and excel in the Arabic language.
Shaykh Fadel, we have a question. This topic is so vast, and every session we've been exploring different elements of the Quran, but there's always so much so many dimensions to cover. So it's been an interesting kind of angle. But you made reference in terms of your translation capturing the variations within the qira'at, yes, and 10, and with 2 narrators for each, possible 20 kind of different perspective meanings coming. Abdullah Al-Mamoon is asking, can you give one example of the different translations? So just one example of where, due to the different qira'at, the meaning is different.
Of course, yes. We know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فتلقى آدم من ربه كلمات فتاب عليه. So Adam received words from his Lord and he accepted his repentance. There is a qira'ah of Ibn Kathir of Mecca, Ibn Kathir al-Makki, that makes Adam, instead of Adamu, Adama. Instead of Dhamma, this directive, it's called dialectic mark. Instead of Dhamma, it is Fatha. This means that Adam became the object, not the subject. So we translated it like that. So Adam was received by words of his Lord, and he accepted his repentance. The first qira'ah, Adam received words from his Lord, which means it emphasizes on the duty of the human being to repent. But the second qira'ah of Ibn Kathir, Adam was received by the words of his Lord, emphasizes that even if the human being repents, it is the repentance of Allah that embraces him. It is the word of Allah that embraces him. So this is the beauty of the qira'at. They give you different dimensions, different meanings, but both meanings will enrich the meaning and make it a holistic. I can give you another example if you want. Fir'aun said, "Daruni aqtul Musa, let me kill Moses. Inni akhafu an yubaddila dinakum aw an yudhhira fil ardi al-fasad." I am afraid that he will change your religion or he will spread mischief in the land. There are 4 different qira'at for this. One of them is, "Inni akhafu an yubaddila dinakum wa an yudhhira fil ardi al-fasad." Instead of or, it is and he will spread mischief. I'm afraid he will change your religion and spread mischief in the land. The third qira'ah is, "Inni akhafu an yubaddila dinakum أو أن يظهر في الأرض الفساد." I'm afraid that he will change your religion or fasad, corruption, will be spread in the land, but not necessarily by Moses. Maybe by someone else. Maybe there is an enemy lying in wait on the border and he will take the chance and so on. And the fourth qira'ah is, إني أخاف أن يبدل دينكم وأن يظهر, and corruption will be spread. What does that mean? What exactly did Fir'aun say? Fir'aun said all of them. This means that this was a long meeting between Fir'aun and his chiefs. It started like that, let me kill Moses. And then they they studied every single option, everything that can happen. And they decided not to kill him because nothing tells us why he changed his mind and why didn't he kill him. The qira'at will explain to you that it was a long meeting and they found that several things can happen. There's a lot of dangers that are facing the Egypt if he kills him like that. So he decided not to kill him, but to debate with him. So this is the issue. The qira'at, the first thing I learned when I went to learn qira'at from my sheikhs is that what you were learning before is the Quran in the narration of Hafs. The meaning is the meaning of the Quran in the narration of Hafs. You want the whole meaning of the Quran? It is the whole meaning of all the qira'at. One narration is enough, I know that, to worship with it. But if you want the holistic meaning, it is the qira'at. That's why the Quran is a very strong book. It's not like any other book. Every book was written in this world for the world to read it. This book descended on the world from outside the world for the world to read it. It's huge. It's not something easy to understand like that. No, you can keep reading and reading and reading for 100 years. And every time you understand something new, it gives you, every ayah in the Quran is not only giving you a new dimension and a new understanding. No, it's like a source of iman that can gush in your heart if you focus on it, if you give it yourself.
So Shaykh Shafi, we're talking about accessing the Quran. You have the translation to access as a first level. Then you have the approach to tadabbur, where you're having that personal relationship with the Quran and reflecting into the deeper meaning based on how that message relates to you and your lived experience. But then something that you are very much engaged in, which is tafsir, of the Quran, something that you're preparing on a regular basis to deliver, where you're accessing scholastic analysis of the meanings of the Quran. Can you shed some light in terms of your experience in that field of tafsir? Because, you know, subhanAllah, when you are reading tafsir and detailed studies of the Quran from scholars who've dedicated their life in that, it brings a completely different meaning as well. And the point that you were alluding to earlier on, where you may think that's the meaning, but when you go to tafsir, there's a wider and deeper meaning.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is probably one of the most served book in the whole world. There are hundreds and thousands of volumes written about the Quran to explain it, to understand it and everything. And every mufassir has their style and everything. But I think the richness that comes out of the analysis that the mufassirun do on the ayahs in terms of what it means, why did Allah, because look, the thing I said before, you know, in English, if you say to somebody that, you know, Zayd is in the house, this is one sentence. Then you say, indeed, Zayd is in the house. Then you say, you know, I saw that Zayd was definitely in the house, right? All three, they convey the same meaning. Zayd is in the house, right? At a basic level. But each sentence, there's a nuance there. There's an emphasis there. There's a reason why you're saying, I see that, or I saw Zayd is in the house, or indeed he's in the house. And that's one of the secrets of the Quran. That's one of the secrets of balagha, in terms that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen like the perfect arrangement. Like the Quranic miracle is not that anyone can't reproduce it. That is there as well. But the miracle is in the selection of each word in its sequence and the correct word in the correct context. It's so precise. So you kind of get exposure to some of that in the tafsir, especially those who focus on the language and things like that. So really, it's another world. You're swimming in another ocean, if you like. But also, you know, you got to bring it back down to guidance, hidayah. At the end of the day, when I first started to present tafsir, it was quite complex. You know, there's linguistic understanding, there's ahkam, there's hadith. But at the end of the day, what you have to bring it back down to is the hidayah. What is, like Shaykh Fadel said, the sign. This ayah, in terms of guidance, what is it telling me? You can go into the history, who is this person mentioned in the ayah, look at the beauty, the rhetoric, the balagha, the eloquence. That's amazing, and it's powerful, and it moves you, and it gives you meaning as well. But also, what at the end of all of that, you know, the guidance point. What am I meant to learn from this? What is it that I'm meant to gain from this? So this is the real kind of beauty of tafsir, you know, the beauty of understanding and looking into the rich kind of heritage of the scholars who spent their whole entire life studying the Quran, understanding its language. And like I said, the Arabs, even if they know Arabic, they're not going to understand the meaning always, because the Quran was revealed in the Arabic of the Arabs of the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that language is only preserved up to 150 years after the Prophet ﷺ. And that language, its peak was reached before the Quran with the Jahili poetry, the literature that existed then. Their style, their idioms, the way they use the words, that is the template, or not the template, but that's the language in which the Quran was revealed. So there's a lot of work to be done to understand it, but the beauty is there. If you open up the books, if you can access the books, it's amazing. The other thing is, you will know somebody who understands the tafsir and reflects and does the tadabbur, you will never have doubt that this Quran is not from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What do you say, Shaykh Fadel? You will never ever have any doubt that this Quran is not from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You will be 100% sure no human being could ever have written this Quran.
The Tadabbur gave me this, that the best medicine against atheism is Tadabbur al-Quran. If someone establishes the relationship with the Quran, because the Quran is not words on paper, it's not ink. The Quran is a ruh, it's a spirit. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَكَذَلِكَ أَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْكَ رُوحًا مِنْ أَمْرِنَا. I have revealed to you a spirit by my command. It's a spirit that jumps into the dead heart and revives it. It gives it life. So the issue is, if you want to protect yourself against atheism, against kufr, against any ailments of the heart, it is the Quran. It is the medicine. But the problem is when we use the medicine the wrong way.
SubhanAllah, we started off this this session about an hour ago, thinking we'll be exploring Tadabbur al-Quran. We're going to be looking at the Bridges Foundation's work around dealing with misconceptions and atheism, and the Sheikh's program, particularly in dealing with that, and also dealing with post-Ramadan, continuity afterwards, and reflecting on some of the spiritual elements there. But the nature of the subject of the Quran is so vast that we've just kind of not even scratching the surface, and the whole show's been taken up. But I think being the month of Ramadan, I think it was important that we dedicate as much time as possible to this Quran, which allows our listeners to really appreciate how to approach the Quran, how to go about studying the Quran. There's another question, how can someone who is new to reading the Quran get a true meaning and understanding of it? Any quick kind of response to that question, Shaykh Fadel?
Can I suggest something? Through Faith Inspire, I gave a whole one-day workshop, which is now for free on YouTube. If people, I can put for you the link as well. If people go to Bridges Foundation channel on YouTube, first of all, subscribe and like, and then go to the playlists. In the playlist, there is one that is called How to Ponder the Quran Even If You Do Not Know Arabic. This is the one that we made through Faith Inspire.
Yeah, so I think obviously some of these things require a weekend course, long lectures. So in this kind of short show, it's really about touching on some of those things. So I hope, inshallah, it's been beneficial. We're coming to the end of the show, but before we conclude, as this is the final show of Ramadan, inshallah, for our viewers, Ramadan Unlocked is going to come to an end, because Ramadan is going to come to an end after today. But we are planning to continue with this show, and we're going to retitle it possibly Faith Unlimited. Faith Unlocked, sorry.
Unlocked.
Unlimited as well. After today's kind of overdose of Quran, mashallah, it's unlimited. So Faith Unlocked, inshallah. You'll see the publicity and when this new session, new series is going to start, inshallah.
Doesn't sound too bad either. Faith Unlimited. Faith
Unlimited is not too bad as well, so you might want to consider that. So, inshallah, the show hopefully will carry on post Ramadan as well. So stay tuned, inshallah, in terms of when the next episode and who the next guest will be. I think definitely we'll need to bring Shaykh Fadel Soliman in one of the future episodes to discuss the challenges in addressing some of the misconceptions that are widespread, especially atheism that you were talking about, where we're living in the West, where it's almost like a godless society. How do we ensure that our children growing up, and even ourselves, even as we face the different challenges, how do we navigate through that? So we will definitely, inshallah, call you for another show on that subject, inshallah. But as this is the final show of Ramadan, I want to just kind of get some guidance and advice from both of yourselves in terms of how do we carry on with the spirit of Ramadan, post-Ramadan, and any final reminders and nasiha that you would like to give our audience. Let me come to Shaykh Fadel first, and then we'll come to Shaykh Shafi.
Well, I will just repeat what I said in the beginning of my talk, that don't be sad that Ramadan is ending. Just continue whatever good you were doing in Ramadan. You were fasting. Nothing is telling you not to fast after Ramadan. Continue fasting after Ramadan. You were giving charity. Continue giving charity. You were reading the Quran. Continue reading the Quran, because the Lord of Shawwal is the same Lord of Ramadan. Ramadan is ending, but the Lord of Shawwal is still there, and he will be there forever. So please continue doing what Ramadan trained you to do.
Jazakallah khairan. Shaykh Fadel, Shaykh Shafi. Your thoughts?
Yeah, very similar message. وَاعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ حَتَّى يَأْتِيَكَ الْيَقِينَ, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Obey, submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in ubudiyah until yaqeen comes, until death comes. And Aisha radiallahu anha, she was asked about the habits and actions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, particularly to do with the fasting and things like that. Did he used to specify certain days for fasting and things like that? And she responded that kana amaluhu dimatun or daymatun, both ways. His amal, his actions were, she used a word which means continuous rain, abundance, right? You know, when it rains for hours, but at the same pace, not too much, not too less, but continuous. So this is how Aisha radiallahu anha, she described the process of amal. So let us also take that lesson. Let us be consistent. Obviously, we can't keep up the same rate, but also know this was a kind of training. Now we're going into the real world. Shaitan is unlocked. We're going to feel lazy. There's all these other challenges. Let's at least try and maintain some remnants. If we used to do 8 rakat at night or more, let's try and do 2 rakat or 4 rakat. If we read the whole Quran, let's try and read a few pages a day. Like that, let's try and continue. And that's one of the signs of our actions being accepted as well. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq, inshallah.
Great. Jazakallah khairan, Shaykh Shafiur Rahman. And Jazakallah khairan, Shaykh Fadel Soliman, for giving up your time and joining us and sharing with us your thoughts and reflection on the Quran. This was the month of the Quran, and we try to dedicate as much time as possible in discussing topics related to the Quran. And as this is the last day of Ramadan, as we enter the new month, let us not close the book and put it away in our shelves until next year. Let us, inshallah, maintain this relationship with the Quran, continue reading the Quran, reciting the Quran, having tadabbur of the Quran, understanding the deeper meanings of the Quran, and most importantly, trying to put as much of the learning, the guidance that we get from the Quran in our lives and try and live by the Quran, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan to all our viewers for joining. We thank Faith Inspire for facilitating this show over the course of the month of Ramadan. As I said, inshallah, we will continue with this show with the new kind of arrangements and new branding of the show as Ramadan is over. So we can't carry on with Ramadan Unlocked, but Faith Unlocked, inshallah, will possibly be the next show. So please stay tuned and stay subscribed to Faith Inspire's social media platforms for all the latest updates and information of the different shows that will be coming up, inshallah, to keep us informed about the way we can continue serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan once again, and we'll end the show here. Eid Mubarak to you all. Keep us in your prayers. Stay safe. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.